Welcome to the podcast Special Educators Corner. My name is Karsten Skrulle-Gundersen and I wish you a most warmly welcome to my corner of special education. In this episode, which is volume 7 and the second to last episode of this year's summer series and season 6, the topic is once again childhood dementia. If you haven't heard the first episode, which was published earlier this season, where I talked to Gail Hilton, I recommend you do so. The focus of the conversation in this episode is learning how to best facilitate this. I'm joined by a record number of guests, 5 in total. In this conversation, you will meet Professor Stephen von Tetzchner, Professor Emeritus in Psychology at the Institute of Psychology at the University of Oslo, Kate Sinn, researcher conducting a Churchill Fellowship on childhood dementia and education, Bengt Elmerskog, retired advisor at Statped, Grete Tøssebro, retired special educator, and Øyvind Blindheim, father to a son with childhood dementia. Together they share of the knowledge, experience and thoughts concerning the topic of this episode. And now, my conversation with Stephen, Øyvind, Kate, Bengt and Grete. Excellent. And once again, I would like to welcome to the podcast corner of special education and a new episode in the series Let's Talk About. And once again, the topic is childhood dementia. And I previously recorded different episodes about this topic, and for myself, I was made aware of this topic through the Norwegian TV series Team Pølsa, which aired on the Norwegian broadcasting system in the year 2025. And in this episode, I have a record number of guests with me, a total of 5. So, as I said to all of you before we started recording, I'm truly grateful to all of you for taking the time to join this episode of my podcast. In the preparation of this conversation, you've been able to hear my conversation with Gail Hilton from Childhood Dementia Initiative. And before we get to that, would you like to give a short presentation of yourself? We'll start with you, Kate.
Okay. So, hello, my name is Kate, and I am a researcher currently undertaking a Churchill Fellowship focused on how to better support young people with dementia in schools. So I'm also currently a member of the Childhood Dementia Action Group with Alzheimer's Scotland, which recently published a report on the state of childhood dementia in Scotland that was presented at Scottish Parliament.
Excellent, and welcome. Well, and then we have Bengt and Grete. I would like to give a short presentation of yourself.
Okay, shall I start? My name is Bengt, and I'm originally coming from Sweden. I'm at the first child with childhood dementia in 1976 at the institution in Sweden. We collected almost all children with childhood dementia, not childhood, but with NCL or Batten disease. And from that, I have been very eager to focus on this group. I have also been working in Africa for a while. I worked with war victims in Zimbabwe after the Rhodesian War, and also with people with visual impairment in Uganda for 5 years. So, and now I'm living here in Norway, and I'm very keen on this theme, children with childhood dementia.
And my name is Grete. I'm a special education teacher and advisor. I'm retired now, but I'm still very interested in this theme, and we keep in contact with several parents and families who have children with NCL. The last 10 years of my working life, I worked mainly with children with NCL.
Welcome to you both. And Stephen.
Yes, my name is Stephen von Tetzchner. I'm Professor Emeritus at the University of Oslo, Department of Psychology. I'm a child psychologist, and I have been working with several different kinds of disabilities, maybe looking more at atypical development and typical development, looking at it together. And my history with the Spillmeyer-Fugt, as we call it in Norway, goes back to the end of the 1980s, and so I've sort of been involved with that a fairly long time.
Welcome, Stephen. And the fifth and last person in this episode, Øyvind Blindheim, welcome to you too.
Thank you. Yeah.
A short presentation of yourself.
Yeah. Well, in this context, I'm the father of a kid with GNCL, childhood dementia. His name is Øyvind. Was brave enough to put the face on childhood dementia on national TV in Norway, speaking up, putting into words how it is affecting him. So together with him, we've tried to raise national awareness and the need of funding for research. So that's us, or me.
Welcome to you too, Øyvind. Let's start. For those of the listeners of this episode who need to get a quick grasp around the term childhood dementia and haven't heard the episode with Gail Hilton. And from my conversation with Gail, I understand that childhood dementia is it's a lot of different sub diagnoses, and I haven't actually decided who should explain this, but maybe Kate, would you do the honor?
Oh, I would love to. So most people have some sense of what dementia might look like in an older person, and that gives them a framework. So childhood dementia is an umbrella term, as you said, that encompasses over 100, I think over 120 life-limiting neurodegenerative conditions. And the characteristics of this is the loss of previously acquired skills. So unlike most conditions we associate with childhood, the child will still continue that where the child still continues to develop, they actually gradually lose the skills and abilities that they had gained. So I would really encourage you to listen to Gail's interview if you haven't already. She can explain it far better than I can. But the key is taking that knowledge of this developmental trajectory and applying it in your planning with sensitivity and empathy to the child's experience.
Perfect, thank you. And for my other guests, anything you want to add to Kate's explanation?
I think I would like to add that it's more formally, it means that you are showing the same characteristics of dementia as you will in elderly people, but it's before the age of 18. So there is a definition, because some people, because some think it's a new term, but it's not a very new term. It's at least for the last 50 years, it has been used by various people.
So we can go back in history in 50 years time span, and when it comes to this diagnosis. But I was curious before this conversation, and I don't recall if this was mentioned in my conversation with Gail, but at what time, at the earliest, is it possible to provide the diagnosis of childhood dementia?
Okay, I understand. That can relate to what Kate said. There's over 100 diagnoses leading to childhood dementia. The biggest group in Norway is children with a diagnosis DNCL, which is Øyvind's son. And that group is around from 30 to 45 children at every time. I mean, today I think it's around 30, 32 children. 10 years ago it was 45. So that's a range, you can say. Yeah. But you can say that the dementia thing will be sort of activized when they have been given that, and also we know what will happen in future for the child. Yeah.
Your question is not so absolutely clear, because if you look at the diagnoses that have been included in childhood dementia, you will, for example, include Rett syndrome, which is a very much more common disease in Norway, and they will typically show a normal development in the classical form between 6 to 18 months. And I would hesitate to say that this was childhood dementia, because they have such a short span where they actually show the typical development, and maybe they are just too young for us to see it. But with the JNCL, it usually seems to be apparent at 10, so that is clearly within the 18 years, and it's also clearly that they had a period where they were functional fairly normal.
Correct. Kate, please.
I just wanted to harken back to the fact that there are so many disorders, conditions that can cause this, and there are huge variations between the age of onset. So the consistent thing, it's, as Stephen said, I think is below the age of 18. So.
Correct. Thank you. And Øyvind, from your family's experience, at what age was your son diagnosed with this? With this diagnosis.
Well, he started to develop like sight issues at the summer before second grade. And then in a half year or so, we got the diagnosis, going through like with the eye doctors, and then taking a gene test, right? To like we thought it might be like retinitis pigmentosa, like a disease that affects the retina, the retina. But then like a couple of weeks after we like settled in and like tried to cope with the thought of him being blind, we got the news that it was much worse than that. Yeah, it was like 6 years old.
And my next question relates to, and this is quite a big one, about the latest research concerning childhood dementia and what it tells us. And Kate, you are just in the middle of this one. Do you have anything to share regarding this matter?
As in my research or the general field?
In the general of yeah.
Okay, so my area of focus is in education. So I will say that research pertaining to childhood dementia as a whole in education is few and far between, unfortunately. But there have been research going on in sort of the individual disorders. So I do see that as really important, that we begin to craft a broader knowledge base so that we can approach it from, as Gail said in her interview, economies of scale. But my work very much stands on the shoulders of the emeritus project that Stephen, Bengt, and Grete here were a part of. So the JNCL, childhood dementia and education. So I would defer to them for that.
Excellent. And Bengt and Grete, anything to add regarding this matter?
Yeah, I can say that within education, we are like our society and European society. We know very much about the pathways, the development pathway for typical development. We also know a lot about children with delayed development, but we don't know much about children that lose the skills when the curve is going backwards. And our experience in Norway is that school and education is working very well as soon as the child is growing according to expectation. But when expectations, there's no expectation longer, I don't think school today is able to do a good work for these children. Yeah. I don't know if Stephen want to add something about that, maybe.
There were lots of things we could say about that. In the 90s, I traveled around Europe and I was trying to see who was doing what, and there were not very many people doing much. And I remember I was in Bad Emmerskog, which is in the Netherlands, and they actually had all with the JNCL, in the same institution. And I was asking about, so what were they doing of the research? Because when they had so many, they had an opportunity, and they said that essentially they didn't do anything because they thought it would be harmful. And I thought it would be possible, without, the children taking it as a test, to get an information, just to know about the variety, which is something that we found in the project, the European, and also including some from United States, that we found out, the typical, the sort of average developmental course, as well as variation. We think that both of them are very important. And we also started to think about education. And we had a conference in Sweden in 2006, which actually was about JNCL and education. And that just hadn't been a topic before. And the reality is that the time span of this group is actually the educational time span. It's the time of the life that most of us will have education. So therefore, if we want them to be included as much as possible and, taking part in as much as possible, we should think to, are there ways of organizing the education so that they also can benefit from it? And again, I also want to say that the teachers are very often, empathetic, and they are good, but they need support from somebody who actually has known more people and knows the variation, and so it's not something you can just put in somebody straight out from university. Sorry, Kate. Because I really think it's important with the support of people like Bengt and Grete, who are more into the practice than I am.
I think that especially when the cognitive abilities start to decline, teachers become very unsure about what to do. They are very afraid to do something wrong. They are afraid to do something that will hurt the child, to make the child's life situation worse. And so it often ends with a far too passive situation. And then they need a lot of support. The teachers need lots of support to encourage, to find ways to work with these little children. And it's not very difficult, really. It's give more help, keep them active as much as possible. But this is the critical phase in the child's school life.
Yeah. And we do think that every child and young person have a developmental capacity regardless of diagnosis. Development from this standpoint is both about supporting growth and preventing unnecessary regression that can arise due to insufficient knowledge, environmental support, or other types of barriers. So every children, including children with childhood dementia, have a capacity and that capacity must be used.
Stephen, please.
Because we have sort of been thinking about education, and we took a concept from the very well-known Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky, who had a concept that is called the zone of development, proximal development, which essentially means that there is a period in life, and different stages, different kinds of skills, where you can do it if you get some help, but you cannot do it on your own. And for him, he says, this is the important part, is that you actually can try to solve, and then over time you learn to solve new problems all the time. And the zone of proximal development is not something you go through, it's something that follows you, because there is always something that you need some help to do. So the idea there is that as you become more competent, you take away what is called usually the scaffolding, which means the help you get, and you reduce it so you become more independent. So first together, then alone. Now, we made a new zone, which is the zone of developmental maintenance. And it's that as you are losing skills, we increase the help instead of reducing the help, which would be the typical development. And the idea is that the person, as Bengt also said, that should be active and should be sort of an agent in his or her own life as long as possible. There will probably come a time when you cannot give sufficient help, you're actually taking over and doing it. But as long as possible, if you are sort of having your part and you're actually deciding something for yourself, this is what we think is important. Then we just have to turn on and opposite and say that we have to give more help, rather than, which very often happened, is doing it for them. Because it's so easy to take over, which leads to passivity, and I actually think it's a more difficult situation.
Thank you. And this was from a conversation with Gail Hilton. We didn't discuss the matter of how to facilitate learning and how to, a child with childhood dementia. What kind of knowledge do a teacher need to facilitate the daily learning of this individual? And I wanted to ask you, Øyvind, when it comes to being a father to Syver, would you like to share some of your experience when it comes to his time in school and how it's been?
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah. First of all, I would like to emphasize the need of specialized competence to be able to meet the needs of these children, right? And also these kids get multiple challenges as a result of the disease, which each on their own is a huge challenge for the kid itself and also the team around them, the parents and also the teachers, right? And I remember being so grateful for the teachers and the team around me. Both my wife and I were so grateful for the experience when, feeling that this school, they knew that they had to get competence from another, they had to get help from Statped because they did not have the competence to deal with this matter of the sort of needs that my son had, and to see that the staff at Syver School, they managed to cooperate with Statped to build an educational arena for him to grow in, both maintaining and developing his skills, regarding subjects, but also social needs and social skills to be a part of the group, right? So to see that all the pedagogical choices they made for both Syver and his classmates, to give them the tools, the competence to be there for him, meeting his needs, was quite emotional for us, because when we first got the disease in our hands, the only thing we could think of was everything that he would lose, right? And of course we were really afraid that he would lose like his position in the classroom, between his friends, and as an educational partner in the class, right? So but the school really, they saw their own sort of shortcomings as teachers in this regard, and their lack of knowledge and competence, and that they needed help from specialists. So I would really like say a big thanks to Statped and the competence that they have built over years, yeah, that was really important for us, and also for this, of course, for the teachers that really wanted to be able to help. So we've been, now my son is thriving at school. He loves it. So we're very thankful.
And thank you for that, Øyvind. Anything you want to add, Stephen, Bengt, Anne Grete, and Kate?
Yeah, I think it's very nice to hear, Øyvind, what you're saying, that you are satisfied with the services you have received from resource centers. But still, I think we have a long way to go to get this term childhood dementia accepted as an educational theme. It's still a word we are using. I think Øyvind has done a wonderful work to make it known in Norway, also in Sweden and Denmark. So I think every person in Norway knows that something is something that's described as childhood dementia. But we have to also transfer this culture into institutions or universities who actually shall carry on making research or whatever services on for these children. It's not only GNCL that suffer from childhood dementia, but say there's quite a few thousand children in Norway who have this kind of problems. So I think in educational way, I think childhood dementia is a wonderful pedagogical term. Also, there's something, a consequence of something which could come back in a much better way than it's done today.
Kate?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the time the teachers really are really invested in doing a good job. And I think it's really important to empower them to do that. So the thing is that from what I found, there's this fundamental misalignment between how the educational systems are designed and the reality of childhood dementia. So schools are built on the assumption that children develop forward, effort produces progress, skills accumulate, but we know that childhood dementia renders all of that invalid. And yet we're asking teachers to work within these systems without the training, resources, or specialist support that they need. Now that's where it can go wrong. So it is really important to start from the system as a whole so that it is conducive to delivering this timely support when it is needed. Yeah.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yes, I was sitting and being almost a little nostalgic because in one of my first work with this was actually when we started to have communication devices and things and computers and the program that later came. And we actually got, I think, all teachers in Norway working with, children who were still in school with JNCL. And they would come together around this project And it was also, and they would stay at Tambartun, which, was actually beautiful because you would have small houses and, everybody would stay there, and they would sit and talk, not only during working hours, but late into the evening and night and so on. And I think coming together and also learning from the other experiences, when there is a disease that is so rare as it is, then it's so important that you meet the other. And this was actually an opportunity. Unfortunately, Tambartun does not exist in that form anymore. But it might be possible to do something similar, and I think it's important that it goes over a few days, because you need the evenings, the informal, not only what you do together, more formally, or maybe their lectures and so on. But we actually had this computer program that was a beginning, and there was a lot of things to talk about that. And I think that really kept people together. And they all had, different children with different ages, but they all needed this, and this was new, and they were inventors. So again, I wish we could make, a similar group again, and a continuous group, so that all the time that would be possibilities for coming together. Then, of course, also meeting the people where Tambartun was, the one who knew most about JNCL in Norway, so they also got to the right place, but in addition to coming together.
Thank you. Kate?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, that's an amazing sort of example of the power of collective resilience, I think. I think a lot of the time when teachers are struggling with burnout, for example, because it is emotional labor, a lot of the time you focus immediately on the individual resilience. How do we give them counseling? How do we help them gain this resilience? But I think another area of focus is making sure that the teacher is not isolated in their professional role, making sure that they have a team that they can lean on, that they can share knowledge and experience to feel understood, and also for the distribution of responsibility. Because oftentimes when it's just that one teacher, the coordination responsibility, especially when the students' needs are so complex, to reach out to the different individuals involved in the multidisciplinary team, and then having to plan ahead, incorporating advice from different members of the interdisciplinary team into your daily schedule. It can be a lot for one person. So this is an example of how some good practice can sometimes become contingent on the goodwill of individual actors who are involved in the care of that student. And by that, I mean, it might fall to the parents who are working so hard to advocate for their child and fight for what they need, or making sure that information is flowing from junior school to high school when they're transitioning, for example. That's where parents oftentimes have to step in and have that extra responsibility on them, and I don't think that's best practice, because they're already dealing with so much. Not having that one teacher having this coordination responsibility, planning ahead, doing all of these things by themselves. So instead of making this contingent on the goodwill of individual people, we need to make this a systemic guarantee, a guarantee by design, rather than having lots of differences between the care that is being provided to different children with dementia, because the care that they receive can be so qualitatively different based on the people involved in their care.
Thank you. And Øyvind, I was wondering, from your personal experience, if you are going to meet a teacher for the first time, what would you say that it's important to focus on when it comes to this diagnosis?
Actually, my son is going to meet going on to visit schools that he potentially can go to apply for next year. We are visiting them not next week, but the week after. And I've been thinking of what should I express? What sort of needs should I express? What sort of challenges or opportunities should I address? And I think I would like to put a spotlight on the opportunities. If this is done correctly, what sort of potential my son has, if they can facilitate for him good, if they can build this strong and good, I've heard the term scaffolding being used before, right? Something that is dynamic, something I really need them to think that this is an exciting opportunity to bring something good to my son's life, right? To be a strong supporter of his educational career, even though I know that it is different from his friends. So I get a bit emotional, right? Because I know that it would be a lot different for him without this disease, right? So these steps from the first, second, or 10th grade, and then so on, I think it's quite hard. Yeah.
Thank you, Bengt.
I want to come back. Yeah, we have a concept developed in an approach. We call it windows of opportunities. Yeah, and I think that's what you are talking about, because we know these children, they will change over time, and we have a sort of a thinking or a dream that you should take care of the day-to-day. What is the opportunity today with a child is 9, 10 years old, whatever? Maybe they can do most subjects at school at that time, particularly read and write, mathematics, whatever. After some time, that might be difficult. Then you have to find new opportunities. What are a child able to develop today? And then you have another agenda, sort of. In addition, we think it's very important with outreach services, with people with knowledge about the disease, because you can say the diagnosis, the ENCLD have an agenda. You will know what might happen in future, and you can actually compensate some of these problems coming in future if you are done, or if work is done early enough. That is scheduled the whole time. And we have been working with a concept called the workshops. We think it's very difficult to present the full concept of the disease for example, teacher or assistants in the beginning. We have to sort of say this is important knowledge today. Don't talk about it, what will happen 20 years from now. We have to concentrate that. And I think this competent person should move along the child and present the news next time, so sort of. And we have found that 1 or 2 days workshops discussing the situation today and come with ideas and guidance, what we can be done is very important, but it has to continue because the child will change over time. Yeah.
And would you say, Stephen, that Grete, please, yes.
And I also think that the advisory services, they should visit the child at the school, because these children are so different. They have the same disease, and we know that several things will happen to them during the disease progression. But still, they are so very, very different. And schools are also different. So to be there in the classroom, talk to the families, talk to the teachers, observe what happens in the classroom. The advisory services become different from each child and from each time you visit. So the advisory services also should have this knowledge, some knowledge about the individual.
Yeah, person-based, yeah.
And Grete, I would like to ask you, since we are in the same profession, as a special educator, would you say that there are, when it comes to this group of children, would you say that there are some some general rules when it comes to facilitate learning in the classroom, or is it just you have to learn the individual by individual?
I think very much can be done in at least when they are small. You can do everything in the mainstream classroom. For example, some of these children become good braille readers and writers. And then I used to give a course to teachers about this, and also spend some time in the classroom and introduce braille for the whole class. And the children were very interested. They found it fascinating. And in one classroom, there was this tough guy, maybe 80 years old, who suddenly said that this was the most interesting thing he had ever learned at school. And of course, that is the fascination of the moment. But this means very much to the child being visually impaired and learning braille. So all the children in the class participate in this, and I think that is real participation. They participate in each other's lives and in each other's learning. And the visually impaired child has a lot of equipment. It's in the middle of the classroom, and when possible, the other children can use it too. That's I think it's a good way of doing it. And later on, there will be some changes. So after a while, you have to maybe change some learning goals for the child with NCL, but you could still work with the goals or the themes that the others work with. So when the class is learning about proteins and nutrients, technical terms, maybe you have to use a more practical way of teaching for the child with NCL, but still
A more tactical way.
Yes, but they still work within the same domains.
Correct. Thank you. I would like to go to the second to last question. And Bengt, since you are soon on your way, I would like to start with you. From all of what we have been talking about during this conversation, what do you want the listener to come home from this conversation?
No, first of all, I would recommend everyone to see this film Team Pulsar. That's a good introduction of what can be done, actually. I think children with this NCL diagnosis and child dementia, they are becoming people who need a team around them. You can say that the team can have a joint goal. So together we can achieve something. I think that's what's the big message, wasn't it, Øyvind, in Team Pulsar? You achieve things because you created a team, people were assisting others. And that's the life of the children with NCL. They need this actual team to work together to achieve personal goals. Yeah. And normally in school we are working with explicit goals. You have a curriculum. You want to achieve something in future or something. But we must not forget that there is something called implicit goals also. We know that, for example, that it's very important to participate. Through participating, you will learn a lot of things, even if it's not written in the curriculum. You can say that children in Norway, they learn Norwegian because they are in a context of people talks Norwegian. And so is it also for children. We must secure participation, because there's a lot of learning and maintenance in participation. I think, say when the dementia becomes quite severe, participation is a very, very important goal. They must sort of an agenda in life where they participate in different kind of activities. That's how I look on education on later stages of dementia.
Thank you. And you are just, I think it's just around your time for you, Bengt, to leave. But before you do that, I would just like to once again say thank you. And Grete, the same question to you. What do you want the listener to take home from this conversation?
I think participation is very important term, and also that we should avoid becoming passive. Passivity is a huge danger for these children. And an example of that is that many of them have difficulties expressing themselves with words after some time. And we have seen examples that the staff then stops talking. They talk much less. And that's the very bad thing, because they still understand, although they have problems with expression, they can still understand what is said, and their good understanding is a great resource in order to tell them, prepare them for what is going to happen, what we're going to do. So don't stop talking and don't stop doing things. Be active.
Excellent. Thank you. And Stephen, what do you want the listener to take home from this conversation?
Before I answer that, I want to comment on the upcoming school. Because one thing is what the schools can do and how they do it, and of course that's important. Now, I really think that Syver has a lot to go for. I mean, he's very charming, and he has made a very good impression on everybody in Norway. So I think he will have a real good start. But even so, I don't know where you are living, but I sort of wish you were living in a smaller place, because everybody would go to the same school, and so he could, be together with his friends, because continuity, the social continuity with peers, is as important as the school. And of course, I do think that the school and teachers are important. And my own experience from that was I worked with a girl many years ago, and she had been going to the regular school all the time, and she was 17, 18 at this time. And I visited her several times at school. It was essentially because her speech was getting difficult, and we were trying to solve that in different ways. And she, at that time, she was not spending so much time in the main classroom, but she was in a smaller group, but in the normal school. And what happened was that when I was there would often come a couple of her friends, drop by in the free time and so on. So she was very much part of it, and she was Russ one night, one day as a Russ, traveling with a bus and all these things like that. But it's the school is more than the teaching and the learning. And actually, I think that being part of a peer group bigger or smaller. And, the peer group, you have some that are close to you, and then you have the others which are, just around, and they are part of it, even, you're not best friends with everybody. And I would, see, is there so that there are other children that he could, go in the same school? Whether how that would be possible, even if he spent some of the time or even most of the time in a group room, they would come along because they knew him. I mean, it's so different coming as an older boy, even though he's a television star, which helps a lot. I think still, if you can go with the others, you should look into that too, because I also want to mention that one of the findings in our project was that the children needed more help to sort of get the social organized. But when the teacher was helping with that, the reduction in social togetherness with the other children was not so much reduced. So I think there's a lot of things you can do, and I think that would sort of, to answer your question about, take home. I think it's important that it is possible to think about this in ways. I think the zone of developmental maintenance sort of, it's a kind of symbol of this, that you give some extra help, but you are still part of, being together with the others. You're sharing the life with them, even if you cannot do everything in the same way. And I think it's important that we think about the peer group as much as we think about the teachers. Although I think good teachers are very valuable.
Perfect, thank you. Øyvind?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, knowing that I'll get the question tip of the day. It's hard to not mention our book. We are really proud of it. And I asked Syver what he's thinking of his achievements the last year. And he himself mentioned the book, where we talk about our fight against childhood dementia and the fight for fundraising, and also our struggles to get the collective term known in Norway, and we are really proud of the book. We think it has a wide reach. I think that also young adults and maybe the oldest children can get something out of it. So we would urge you to buy it in your nearest bookstore. give it a chance. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And Kate, from all of what we've been talking about, what do you want the listener to take home?
I think at the heart of it, what we need to focus on is quality of life, not attainment. It's about the maintenance of skills so they can have as good of life quality for as long as possible. It's about dignity, preserving their identity, their sense of identity and achievement. It's not about milestones. It's about belonging. It's about active participation, not just simply being in attendance. So we need to interpret all of this within education being a part of pediatric palliative care, which is what Gail mentioned last week. So we cannot separate education from it, because as Stephen mentioned, I think earlier on, a lot of these children are spending 4 to 6 hours per day, the most active hours of the day, at school. So then it's the school's responsibility to make the most of this time so that they have the best possible time at school. And I think a huge part of that as well is relational practice. So making sure that the families are feeling seen, heard, and not to forget the siblings as well. I think that siblings are often easily forgotten, but in one brilliant thing about the Emeritus project that Bengt Elmerskog and Stephen were a part of is that there's a chapter on the experiences of siblings. So making sure, where appropriate, you hear their concerns. So, for example, if they're worried that their sibling is feeling lonely during break time, make sure you address that and make sure that there are structured interactions during break times so that their sibling isn't concerned the entire time and they can engage in their own social life as well. So, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. During the last question, you mentioned a variety of different tips of the day, but on that point, do any of you have anything you want to add that tip of the day that is of value to you that you want to share, pass on to the listener? Anything you would like to add, Kate?
I think so much of we know right now is in embodied experience, embodied knowledge. So a lot of these teachers are knowledgeable in the sense that they have spent a lot of time working with a child. They know their personal history. They've constructed knowledge by working with a multidisciplinary team and trial and error over time. It's not necessarily written down. So it's really important to capture the embodied experience of these individual practitioners and create structures that can capture and share that knowledge so teachers don't have to start from zero every single time when a child is transitioning educational environment.
Perfect, thank you. And to the other three, anything you would like to add on at the end of this conversation? Stephen, yeah, please.
Oh, well, yes, I just thought we should not compete with the Syver's book, which I also recommend people to get. But that's in Norwegian, and we also, it's part of our project. We made a book some years ago now, 2019, and it's a free download from Statped. So those who and we got lots of different perspectives, as Kate also mentioned. Also siblings' perspectives, parents, and so on. In addition to different professions. So if people want to learn more about it, I think that is one possibility, and it's fairly accessible. I mean, it's a professional book; it's different, but it is fairly accessible, and it's free.
Perfect. And as always, alongside when I publish an episode, there is also a post on the blog where the listener can find links to tip of the day. So I'll make sure that the link to your book, Øyvind, and also from the resource that you mentioned, Stephen. And Kate, yes, please.
Yeah, and I will also share the link to my report when it's out.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And with that, we are fast closing in on 60 minutes. Kate, Øyvind, Stephen, and Anne-Grete, once again, thank you very much for taking the time to join this very special episode of Corner of Special Education. And I wish you all the best. That concludes Volume 7 of the summer series. But before our ways part, remember to follow the podcast on Spotify, where you listen to podcasts. Also, remember to follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Also, if you want the latest news and posts from the blog, you can sign up to the newsletter from spesblog.no. If you have any comments or want to get in touch, don't hesitate to send me a PM or email at question@spesblog.no. As always, I really appreciate if you rate, share, and recommend the podcast. Finally, thank you to all of you who have listened to this episode, and a warm welcome to new listeners and followers. And a special thanks to Stephen, Øyvind, Kate, Bengt, and Anne-Grete for joining this episode. I'm truly grateful to all of them. If you'd like to make a voluntary contribution to the podcast and blog, You can find further details in the description of this episode. I hope to meet you again in the next episode of Corner of Special Education. Until then, take care. And now, a small preview of the last episode in the summer series and season 6.
Og så er der jo også det med, det er jo ikke fordi, man kan sige, jamen har du for eksempel autisme, så reagerer din hjerne altid voldsomt på små stimuli. Nogle gange kan det også være det omvendte, det vi kalder for hyporeaktivitet, hvor at der skal mere til, før hjernen reagerer på det. Og der tænker jeg, måske skal man tænke det som, at vi har de her forskellige profiler, og nogle stimuli skaber hurtigere en reaktion i min hjerne, end den vil gøre i din hjerne. Men det kan også godt være, at vi skal tænke, at vi har nogenlunde den samlede mængde energi hen over en dag til at reagere på forskellige stimuli. Og hvis man så ligesom på en eller anden måde får tvunget noget af sin energi over til for eksempel, lad os sige lys, at man er meget generet af skarpt lys, så kan det være, at så er der mindre tilbage i posen til for eksempel at mærke efter, at jeg er egentlig på vej til at blive sulten eller kold eller hvad.